Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. We're going to talk about how Disney Lorcana drops in August. It will change every single Dungeons and Dragons campaign permanently, and the reason why is Dungeons and Dragons has been changing in a lot of ways, and one of the most powerful things it did to surge itself into a more modern play set, a more modern play position, is its complete and powerful connection and mingling and mixing with Magic the Gathering, right? So those worlds are Magic the Gathering is canon to D&D, D&D is canon to Magic the Gathering, and that is a fundamental change that means that Magic the Gathering will never be simply Magic the Gathering, and Dungeons and Dragons will never be simply Dungeons and Dragons. Both of them carry the weight, the power, the significance of the other product, right? And so it means that everything that interacts with either product is now fully D&D and fully Magic the Gathering. Disney, like, they saw Magic and they're like, oh, we want a huge, massive money engine, right? So let's make. So Ravensburg's going to build Disney Lorcana, which is going to be a 99% clone of Magic, and it is like a clone of Magic to the nth degree. Like it's literally the same shape. The product is the same in every possible way. There's a 1% difference so that it can be called an homage, but it's a clone of Magic, right? And because of that, there's massive amounts of Dungeons and Dragons in Disney Lorcana. Now, once Disney Lorcana becomes a D&D component, which the moment is a physical product can be purchased on the shelves of NFLGS, it will. There'll be dungeon masters using it at their table immediately, the same way they've been using Magic the Gathering as D&D components for a decade, right? Lorcana will then begin to change Dungeons and Dragons, and here's the kicker. Here's how Dungeons and Dragons will be changed by Lorcana. Lorcana has a more elegant, better presentation of alignment than Dungeons & Dragons currently has. So right now, alignment is complex, and it's cumbersome, and it's heavy, right? One of the things Dungeons & Dragons is trying to do is they're trying to streamline and become more simple, faster. Like, basically, when in the weeds D&D players and dungeon masters come to Dungeons & Dragons, they're like, oh yeah, of course, combat takes an hour and a half. New people are like, no, this is way too slow. I can go watch a movie and the combat's going to be done in 10 minutes. Why isn't the combat done in 10 minutes in D&D? And the terrible answer of current Dungeon Masters and Dungeons & Dragons players, which is, oh, well, because we myopically focus on combat as 90% of the game when it's really only a third of the game, right? Like, they're not going to want that answer, right? So Disney Lorcana is pushing back and reshaping alignment. And how did they do it? Beautifully and brilliantly. So when Ravensburg went to copy Dungeons & Dragons 100% by copying Magic the Gathering, 99%, not 100%, 99%, homage, right? Like you need that 1%, it's important, right? Like, but when Ravensburg went and poured half of Dungeons & Dragons into Disney Lorcana, they ended up in a situation where they were looking at narrative. You cannot deal with D&D or Magic, because you can't deal with Magic without dealing with narrative. And narrative is in Magic because of its influence from Dungeons & Dragons. They're mixed, right, at this point. Like a soup, right? Like, not like, oh, the parts are together. They are, like, baked together forever now, right? Like, and it's huge, and it brings problems, and it brings huge opportunities, right? So here's where we land, right? So Disney Lorcana is reshaping alignment in the most powerful way I've ever seen. Dungeons & Dragons alignment in the most powerful way I've ever seen, which is hero, ally, villain, right? So what Disney Lorcana is saying, in my humble opinion, is like, oh, no, we don't need, we can get rid of, we don't, if we're going to move fast, right, we don't need chaos versus order, right? And we don't need that, right? It's good or evil, and it's neutral, right? And we don't need lawful good, neutral good, chaotic good. We can just say hero. And so every character in Lorcana has one of three. They have one of three delimiters, right? And it is hero, good, all the good alignments. Villain, all the evil alignments. And this is the beautiful part. But one, that is elegant, what I just said. That's a big deal, right? Because while every tabletop role-playing game is getting it wrong and pulling alignment out, when Disney came, they were like, oh, we're copying D&D. We can't pull alignment out. We're not Paizo. We didn't forget all the most important things, right? So they're keeping alignment in, but they're simplifying it. It's hero or villain, right? But then there's ally. And listen to this. This is astounding, right? Ally is, are you good or evil? It doesn't matter. You're an ally. Who cares if you're good or evil? You'll just get swept up by a hero or a villain, right? You don't matter. You don't have significance, meaning, or purpose, right? You're an ally. You're a secondary character. You don't have any motivation. You don't have any momentum. Whatever you do doesn't matter because you're not a hero or a villain. And this is powerful, and I love this. This goes beyond Dungeons & Dragons alignment and pulls Dungeons & Dragons alignment forward and says, people in the middle don't matter, right? And this is incredibly countercultural. Like every sad sack player out there is like, oh, it's really important you understand how important neutrality is and how it's meaningful and I can do both. And so I matter. No, it's the opposite. And Disney Lorcana is clarifying this. They're saying, if you don't stand for good or you don't stand for evil, you don't matter. You'll get swept up by one or the other, and you'll do what they say because you're an ally, right? Neutrality is weakness. Neutrality is irrelevance, right? You stand for something or you are nothing, right? And they're saying this with characters where you can say that safely. You can't say to a person, you're an ally, you're nothing. No one is nothing, right? But if we are an ally in real life, maybe we do need to learn, hey, I got to pick a side, right? Like, and you'd be better off in the villain slot than you would being an ally because relevance is determined by stance, right? Highly fascinating, highly fascinating. I cannot wait for Disney Lorcana to change the face of Dungeons & Dragons, every single Dungeons & Dragons table forever. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.